morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Sofie, Marin, founder and CEO of Arts Dynamics, and it is a great pleasure to welcome you back to this live stream series where I speak with leading thought leaders and creators and change makers around the world to figure out what they are doing to navigate the turbulent times that we are in, how they surf the waves of digital change. And I'm also really curious to know, what's working, what isn't working, what do they see around the corner. So I'm just so happy today to have with me here on the screen, for those of you who are watching this in our video version or live even here on YouTube today as we're streaming this, I've got the one and only Chris Ebeling, who I had the privilege of meeting through an Epic Games mixer. So Chris, first of all, I just wanted to say welcome. So fantastic to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's been a while since I've done one of these. So yeah, I'm keen to jump back in and talk shop.
Yeah, I agree. And you are one of those wonderful people where you start a conversation and we can just keep on free flowing forever, which also fits this format perfectly because it's really about that, a conversation, engagement. And I happen to know also that people who tune in often love to ask questions and engage as well. So if there are people with us live that would just like to say hello in the comments, please do. Let us know who you are, where you are from. Do you have any questions that you feel that I should ask Chris? Let me know. And if we don't do them live, we'll be happy to follow up afterwards, of course. So Chris, you are here in your own capacity. Obviously you do work at Epic, but you have vast experience from the immersive field, from film, TV. You worked Hollywood blockbusters, the Legos movie, Great Gatsby, on and on it goes. I am so in awe of everything that you do. So can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself? And you're from Epic as well. Yeah.
Yes, of course. I'll give you a little backstory. So yeah, my name is Chris Ebeling. I was a digital artist first. I came up through the ranks at a studio in Australia called Animal Logic, which was the makers of the Knowing movies, Australian movies. They did the Happy Feet movies. They did Matrix movies, as well as the Lego movies as well. Worked there for many moons as a young junior artist through traineeship, and worked my way up to becoming a lead and senior animator, where I then jumped into other projects as well, including education, which I'm really passionate about. I jumped into the education space and actually helped form one of the world first industry-led master's courses, and this was a unique collaboration between University of Technology in Sydney, Australia, as well as Animal Logic. But Animal Logic is now called Netflix Animation. They've recently been bought out. So, things change, as we know, and that's what we're going to talk about as well, what these changes are and how we adapt and how we, go with the waves of technology and changes. So I'm very passionate about education, and this industry-led master's course was really a big step for me because I don't have a master's nor a bachelor, and here I was, developing a curriculum and leading it for 3 years, and it's still going now, and it's one of the most successful, animation courses and visualization courses. And when I say that, it's not just about making games and movies. We also jumped in and talked about emerging technologies. So we got these students to jump in as well into the XR space, the AI space, and to really also understand what it means to become an entrepreneur. From doing that for those 3 years, I eventually became an entrepreneur. I started forming my own companies with some co-founders, one being a blockchain game, blockchain Web3 space, which is really interesting, and that had its hype. I think it's still very relevant. And we formed a game there called Zed Run, which was a digital horse racing ecosystem using NFTs and blockchain. And since then moved over to form an AI game. So again, if you like the buzzwords in LinkedIn, I could be the buzzword guy. I've tried to dabble in everything. VR, XR, AI, Web3, metaverse. But that's because I believe in all that stuff, and I really love that stuff. I think I've always been curious with new technologies and curious on what they can do. Like, where can we empower creativity? Foster inclusivity and drive prosperity, like where are the opportunities? So then I formed a game called Meta 11, which is if you think about it, it's digital athletes that you can own and train, but are have these heavy AI models in them. So it's like having a digital athlete Tamagotchi, basically, that you can talk to, that you can train. It plays sports for you. So you're a coach of sorts.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll finish soon. Since then, I've moved from Australia back to Copenhagen, Denmark, where I reside today. And here I started my own digital consulting company called Beyond Horizons. Again, the name meaning I like to look beyond. I like to see what's coming. I like to try to identify trends. And I help companies and education with strategies. Through that, I've formed a few bigger projects on a European scale, thanks to Erasmus Plus funding. So we have an innovation alliance called panorama.eu. I hope you'll share all these links in the show notes, which is really exciting as well. And Panorama's aim is to actually connect Europe via schools and industry and understand where the gaps are from education to industry, and then bridge those gaps. As we know it, and what the subject of today I'm sure will be, is technology is moving so fast that we have to try to keep up, and academia is having a hard time to keep up, because academia is kind of stuck in its 2, 3, 4 year cycles. And with the rapid change of technologies, it's hard to be agile and pivot to these changes, right? And this is where projects like Panorama come in. This is where the work I'm doing now with Epic Games comes in. I'm really, really passionate about like future proofing and making sure that when we do educate students and we do bring people in, even students or lifelong learners, that we actually, we listen to their dreams and we try to fulfill them the best we can. We don't just put bums on seats, take money and shoo them out the door with false hope. We actually empower them so they're ready to get into industry, and which also in turn empowers industry. So today I work with Epic Games as a partner and education advisor, and this is where we met through one of our events in Stockholm, Sweden. And I'm super passionate about the work and the ethos of Epic. Epic Unreal Engine, I really believe, is a tool that future-proofs us. It's more than just a game engine. It is used in all these different industries. And now I'll be quiet because I need to drink some water, and it's your turn.
Don't worry about it. I see exactly this. I so appreciate that we're able to have a conversation. We can breathe and actually talk together like this. Two things comes to mind. One is academia versus entrepreneurship. I don't know if you, with your experience, if you would agree with this, but I remember when I went from the world of academia, or even working in music, arts, and culture, there is a lot of academia behind also that, working like I did with opera and theater productions and stuff, moving from that kind of mindset where academia, you're looking for proof of concept, you're testing things out before you launch.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis entrepreneurship, which is the opposite, where you actually trial and error and do beta testing, and it's rather messy. So they are two different paradigms. From your perspective as an entrepreneur, as a founder, and also working with entrepreneurs and creators, how do you link academia with entrepreneurship in a way that makes sense for both ends?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it right. Academia is so good at the research part of it, right? They have the beauty of having worked in academia for like almost 3-4 years. I mean, 5 years plus with some of the work I did at a bachelor's school as well, is you get to move a bit slower. You get to kind of research a bit. You don't have the pressure of industry. You don't have pressure of having to make ends meet as a startup. You don't have pressure of bottom lines, making sure that the resources are correctly used. You have a bit more freedom and to test, trial, and take it a bit slow and follow research. I think the perfect combination is if starting a startup or working in like an entrepreneurial space is having access to academia. I think having access to people who understand the research angle and can supply you with some data, right? Like, again, if you're building an app for a certain region, being able to understand the market fit, understanding the region, understanding the needs, understanding what other businesses are out there, who are your users, et cetera, like all this helps when you have someone in a research capacity on your team, either from like academia or just someone with that kind of skill set, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head. When you do get into entrepreneurial, it's about making mistakes and making a lot of mistakes. I like this saying, it's fail fast, fail forward, and fail often, right? Like just you don't hit the nail on the head straight away, and you're supposed to test and iterate and test and iterate. And at the end of the day, it's through our failures we learn. the best. So and I think failure has this negative connotation to it, right? Like, oh, I failed. No, that's good. Get back up, keep going, right? And then that's where you're going to learn and you're going to grow, and it creates character, right? Like the best people I know and worked with have failed. And I might swear on this because I get passionate. So is that okay?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So all right, good. So they fail a shit ton, right? Like they fail a lot. And
Yeah.
that builds up that character and that resilience so that when they get into a room, they're not afraid of failing. Like I think I could sidetrack now. We live in a society today where it's like people are afraid to fail. I see it in my kids. I see it in younger people. They're like, and I think it's because we reflect too much on social media. I think we reflect too much. We have too many mirrors around us in this digital space where we're too afraid and people are watching, right? Oh no, can I, my advice to anybody is who cares? People don't have time to even think about you. They're thinking about themselves most, like 99% of the time. Just go forth, do you, trial and error, and just kind of, explore and create and ideate and iterate and just continue.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Yeah.
Well, having said that, as you said, with younger people as well, and failing on social media, I think the fear is, or at least that's the feedback I've heard, is that they worry that once it's out there, it will always be there. And as we know, trends can change. The political landscape can change. You might be posting something or talking about something or being really passionate about something, which is cool one day, and then the next suddenly it isn't.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hate as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we live in a world of cancel culture, right? Like
exactly.
This is where people get bitten in the butt for something they said 20 years ago, when actually back then that was the norm, right? And I think, of course, we have to change. We have to be better humans, and there has to be change over time, and respect and inclusivity and diversity and all that. I'm 100% for it, but it's very hard because, like you said, if I said something today, who says that's going to be legal in 20 years time? So yeah, that I agree that would 100% play into it. But I'd hope we as humans can just be a bit more understanding.
Yeah. And for go on.
No, which is probably the problem, right?
For sure. And for our entrepreneurs who are listening, if you do feel any blockages stopping you, maybe it is that perfection blockage that so often comes up for us. And what Chris just said is that's very solid advice. Just go ahead and do trial and error. And it can take time to shift that flick switch inside of us, to actually do that and to be messy. And it might not be perfect, and to release it before you actually know if it's even something you can sell, right?
I'm going to use a couple of Japanese philosophies in this talk, I believe, but one of them is like a wabi-sabi. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's the beauty of imperfection. And it goes, nothing is perfect, nothing is permanent, and nothing is finished. And I really, truly believe in those three sentences, because everything changes over time. Like you said, you might post something today and it changes tomorrow, like in 10 years time, it's not permanent, right? And the perfection part is really important, because you can always sit and change. Like perfection is, again, subjective. So if you're having that battle and you're one of those artists or creators that can't let go, you're never going to get the feedback you want. Like just put it out there, get the responses, collect the data, right? This is where that research component comes in, and that academic mind needs to come in. Collect the data. Hey, if 100 people liked it, I think you're onto something. If 100 people didn't like it, and one person liked it, well, then there you go. Then that's not going to work, right? And then you just got to kind of keep going and keep going. And this goes with everything in life, I would say. So I really love, if you don't know wabi-sabi, it's also beautiful, like pottery they make out of it. They break it and they glue it together with gold. So the philosophy there is, of course, we can break ourselves down and glue ourselves together and be more prettier than before, right? Or there's this new beauty. So I think that's also really relevant in life.
I agree wholeheartedly. But before we dive more into your current projects and some fun things that you and I are talking about currently as well, I would just love to know a little bit more about your background. What led you into this field in the first place? Where does your passion come from?
Yeah, great question. If I look back, I was lucky enough. I was always creative. I always drew as a kid. I would love drawing. I was lucky that my dad, so I'm an 80s kid, and my dad, he read a newspaper article once, and he saw this thing called a Nintendo, and he thought that was a good thing to get us. So we were lucky and blessed to get a Nintendo 8-bit, and that kind of inspired me in that digital realm. Like, wow, okay. And he loved sitting with us and watching us play, because he was equally curious, which was really cool. So I kudos to my dad. And then from there, I think I was always a fish trying to climb a tree in school. You know, like schooling systems are really created for a certain reason in my mind. You know, industrial revolution, you clock in, you clock out, you go to break, the bell rings, you go sit down, you listen, you have to absorb, this way you solve things, and that's it. And I was more of a creative mind. I did okay at school, so I'm not going to complain, but I was always more creatively inclined. And so then I did a lot of more drawing and maybe a little bit of graffiti and stuff like that, you know, like just creative. Huh? No, legal, all legal. But you know, like just experimenting in that sense. And I remember also I got to go when I was like, I think must have been 13 or 14. I got to go on a week camp where we learned to do 2D animation. And I sat with some amazing people who are much better drawers than me. And we did like flip book animations and did a full animation, you know, on a VHS tape, like we recorded it old school style. I think that inspired me as well. So I think just coming out of, you know, and then having done like a high school education, I didn't know what was next. So then I went into the workforce. I played a lot of basketball. That was my passion in that area, which is a separate thing I like to use in the soft skills arena, which we can talk about, I think, in terms of future proofing. I think soft skills or the human skills are very key. Anyway, then I just got into, and I found a short course in animation and tried it out, and I was just mind blown that I could use this program. Before that, and this is I tell a lot of my students, I never used a computer other than listening to music, watching NBA highlights, or you know, doing emails. Even back then, emails were very rare. And then now I could use it to, you know, I learned a 3D program before I learned Photoshop, for example, right? So that was kind of like the opening for my mind. Okay, wow, there's a whole world here. I can explore. My ideas now can come to life. I used to draw and write a lot of stories as well. So yeah, and then from there it snowballed.
That's wonderful. And I know from previous conversations that you and I have had, we've actually had a lot of spiritual conversations too, and an understanding about the deeper meaning of what it means to be human, what it means to be now in these times.
Yeah.
I've said it before in other conversations. I think we've had this too when we talked, you know, how I find it so interesting that people who work often in tech and the immersive technologies is often with people like yourself, that we often have these spiritual conversations. We talk about the deeper meaning, why we're here, you know, filled with that passion. Whereas often, and I say this with the, you know, greatest love and respect for, you know, from the cultural fields, but I often find that there is more focus many times more on the fear around AI or tech or digitization, business, entrepreneurship, even monetization. So where attention goes, energy flows, I find. What is your experience?
Well, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, we do live in a capitalist society, right? So, where the money is, it's where we tend to go. Unfortunately, it's going to be hard to break that kind of systemic inheritance, one could say, of how the globe functions. I think stories are powerful, right? I love the whole idea of story is king or queen. I like to kind of, again, be more inclusive with that saying. And I think stories are absolutely key to give us hope, to give us value, to give us purpose, to give us life, and are a beautiful thing of escapism and belonging and, you know, togetherness and community building. So as a storyteller also at heart, I think that's an amazing power. And I think when you build, if we're talking about building new projects and concepts, I think it's so important that there's a story behind it. Even with the work I'm doing with Epic today, I do believe truly in the story that's behind that, right? I believe that this tool, Unreal Engine, for those of you who don't know that out there, it's a real-time tool, which makes anything from, you know, games to also, you know, architectural visualization, automotive, urban planning, healthcare visualization. I mean, it can do everything, right? And it also makes some of our favorite, I guess, movies in terms of, or TV series like Mandalorian. It's a computer graphics tool that empowers all these creations, and I really believe in the ethos behind what we do with that, because it's a free software to pick up and use. We as advisors and partners are always looking for people who are interested in using the tool and want to advise them how to use it best, because it's not in our own, like, my best interest, like, use our tool because this is the only one. That's not what it's about. It's about future-proofing yourself, I really see that our world as it is getting more and more digital. And what I like to tell people there is just look at the last 10 years and then think about where we're going the next 10 years. And then think about that acceleration of AI on top of that. That's going to be an accelerated 10 years in what the transformation is happening. And I think to future-proof yourself, you need to understand these tools. And I think Unreal Engine is one. Well, I don't actually think it, because again, now when I put my research hat back on, we did some research when we started this Panorama project, so panorama.eu, which is the Innovation Alliance. And we did a survey out globally. We had like 300 plus responses from industry people, digital artists, etc. And one of the main tools that was at the top was Unreal Engine. That's a competency that is lacking and missing. So that's one of our focuses with Panorama. And of course, working with Epic directly, I really truly believe that we're trying to, empower young creators and the next wave of innovators who's going to make the next best, whatever it is, VR, XR, AI, whatever the experience is, right? And hopefully it's a positive thing for humanity.
Yeah, I hope so. And how do people, let's say we've got people here listening and they are like, I actually would like to know more about that. And how do I do that? Or where do I go to find out more about maybe even, training themselves in Unreal? Or, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you can just go to unreal.com and we have a whole training website with free learnings, right? But again, like there's so many tutorials online as well, like YouTube. I mean, we live in a world where we're actually blessed with knowledge, right? Like people can, there's of course the negative sides, in terms of like rabbit holing into TikTok or rabbit holing into Instagram feeds, or whatever the case may be. And but there's also a beauty in the way that we now have knowledge just at our fingertips, right? And I think it's absolutely incredible if you use it the right way. You are just empowered. I mean, so yeah, go online, look up Unreal tutorials, but of course, go to unreal.com and you'll have tutorials vetted from us. What my job is today is to identify academic partners. So that's school, bachelor, master's programs that are using Unreal Engine. And then we want to, of course, authorize them. And there's a certain criteria that they have to hit. It's free for them to do, but it's a certain criteria so that we at least acknowledge and say, yeah, they're teaching it the way that we acknowledge. Similarly with training partners, so for lifelong learners or businesses wanting to upskill, we're always looking at, we have amazing training partners around the world, but we're always looking in certain regions, including, that's our conversation in Stockholm, to build training centers and support training centers, because again, we see these competencies missing, we see the demand for it in industry. And again, it's not just gaming, it's across the board in all these different sectors, industry sectors. Like just to kind of speak on that, like everything is becoming gamified now, whether you're doing a VR training simulation, whether you're going shopping in IKEA, like everything is interactive, right? So those are game mechanics. And now there's different ways of exploring that. And they're usually made with a real-time engine such as Unreal Engine.
Yeah, and two things on that. Number one is community building and subscription models are huge, especially business model for entrepreneurs. And for those of you who are looking into that as part of since obviously we're an entrepreneur network in the creative space, and sometimes I just throw in some based on what you're saying here. Some tips and tricks on what you just said. We see that in the membership space, where membership community platforms more and more upgrade into the gamification. So there are several world-class platforms that are really now, leading the space within that side. But that just goes to prove what you just said with the gamification. Second of all, should we share a little bit about our talk as well about arts dynamics and training?
Yeah. Tell us about. Well, do you want to talk or we're talking together, of course, because I see what you're doing with Art Dynamics, and of course the partners that you're involving in your amazing circles. So of course, as an advisor for Epic Games, I'm identifying you as someone who could really potentially help us establish, an authorized training center. And that would be super exciting, because then you would be, of course, partnering with Epic. But these are still ongoing discussions, and it's super exciting. But that's my job today, and I think that's what's the beauty of it, right? Because at the end of the day, Unreal Engine is a free software to use, and so I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to, of course, advise you in certain ways. And I also want to say this to anybody else who's like in the room. as an entrepreneur myself, I'm agnostic to the tool sets that are in front of me. I've always believed that you have to come with a great idea first, and then through understanding and prototyping, you're going to find out what is your best tool stack to achieve this, right? So, there's other real-time engines as well, such as Unity, who I've also worked with in the past, and I've built projects in that as well. So it's not about one over the other. It's about choosing the best fit for you and your project. But we're excited, and then of course with your connections and your dreams of kind of building an epicenter, I think you should talk a little bit about the details, and I'll add lit to it with your baby.
Yeah, we can share a little bit now. We can't say too much just yet, but for our dear creators that are listening, just keep an eye out in this space, and let us just say that we've got some exciting things cooking. And just like Chris, we like to show, not tell too much. But if anyone here is interested in learning more about how you can use both, Unreal and other, the platforms that we're discussing, you want to get involved as a training partner, or even, try as a creator yourself, come in and use these tools as part of the creative lab that we're building out, just reach out to us. I'll just say, keep an eye. I'll
keep an eye out. We're planning some stuff, and like you said, like there'll be some really cool, hopefully, events coming up soon that we can we'll be collaborating on, and that's
I love that.
Super awesome.
Yeah, and we're very community driven here, so we take our cues from our community. And to give you an example, we had this workshop about the cultural center on Mars. We had people walk on Mars with their XR, with a VR headset, and then they were workshopping, the purpose behind the cultural center. Why would we have one? What would we do? The fun thing with the cultural center is you can have everything. You can have music, arts, culture, entertainment. You can have everything in there. So someone said, it was Roland Williams. He said, Sofie, why don't you just build out an Arts Dynamics art gallery? I need help to, sell my art, which led on to a game jam hackathon the week after. And then we prototyped within 24 hours spatial art gallery, which then in turn led to our first backer for our crowdfunding campaign. And then you and I have had conversations, and others. It's like there is, once you start to take action, people come together and you co-create. It's rather fun. And
and with every action comes a reaction, right? Like it has to start somewhere, and as an entrepreneur, you obviously have the entrepreneurial gene. I believe everybody has it somewhere in them. I just think we have to find it and ignite it. I also believe everybody has creativity in them. I just have to find it and ignite it. And so it's going to be exciting to see where this goes.
Yeah, for sure. So keep an eye out, everybody. I would like to switch gears slightly. And Chris, when we talk about future-proofing, that's, speaking of buzzwords, is something that's being used a lot. And at the same time, I think we all get, in a sense, what it means. But I would like to know your definition of future-proofing. What does it actually mean?
Future-proofing means, of course, that you are as a company or as an individual are there to withstand the test of time, right? Now, again, back to my philosophy that nothing is permanent. To withstand the test of time, you have to be agile and you have to be adaptable, right? Again, some really cool research that we've done at Panorama last year was about soft skills, right? So we have this whole soft skills research, and that's really a big component as well about you as a person, how you work with others, how can you work with others, and also being adaptable to things around you. Resilience is key, right? So building up resilience is a really, really important thing as an individual, because there's so many examples of where that can go. You're working on something for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then we got to pivot. So we have to pivot, and then you have to let that go, and you have to keep going on somewhere else and pick yourself up and at a pace in the entrepreneurial space, which is pretty fast paced, right? And has some stress behind it. So future proofing for me is trying to understand current trends and emerging trends, and then being able to kind of see beyond and look forward and understand what's coming. So, there's the big, again, I speak as Chris Ebeling here. There's the big AI talk, which I think we need to touch on, because I honestly believe that if you're not getting involved with AI in just an understanding level, I honestly believe you'll be left behind. I think it's going to disrupt every industry as we know it. And I mean that. I mean, every industry is going to get disrupted by it. And especially in this digital art space, where every day, if you're on LinkedIn, which is what I do, I go on LinkedIn, I follow some certain people. and there's constantly new developments, right? Like now there's AI going straight into Blender where you can just type in a 3D scene is appearing. So you can see the escalation of it, and how fast it's moving. Now there's a lot to unpack there. One of them being also the rules and regulations and where's the data coming from. I think that's an important subject because right now it's a bit of a wild west. They're just taking, scrambling data, taking data from everywhere, which of course I think needs to be regulated. But I think just to kind of spin a positive light on it, I think it's going to come down to us humans controlling AI. We control what goes into the box, which is AI, right? And I believe that AI was never going to have the emotional intelligence, the critical thinking, the human aspect of storytelling, and the understanding of emotions that the machine will, right? Yeah, I think everybody's tried to play with AI, and if not, could go play with ChatGPT, go play with Midjourney, like just go play with it. Because it will open your eyes to what's going on. It'll give you an understanding. And I really, truly believe that the artists of the future are people who can do artistic work, have an understanding of arts, can, understand composition, storytelling, all those amazing things, but then also know how to use AI as a tool to empower their visions, to empower their creations, and also to empower like company processes, right? Like, if you're able to, again, back to my comment, which is unfortunately that we do live in a capitalistic society, if you're able to now use AI to empower and speed up workflows, like redundant processes, right? It's going to totally get rid of those. And this is no different to what we've seen when you look at the evolution of technology in the last 50 to 100 years, right? From horses in the field plowing to tractors to now, planes flying over and dropping, pesticide, whatever. Like this evolution is always there, and it has always been there, and we as humans will always adapt. But to future-proof yourself, you have to put in the work and be curious, and kind of just keep your head like the minimum thing is like listen to a podcast a week on AI. And there's an AI news podcast. I don't have one myself because I look at LinkedIn every day. Maybe I should find one. But there would be some out there which gives you the latest and greatest news, and just put that on when you go for a walk or go to the gym or whatever you're doing. Give yourself half an hour of download, because then it'll just keep you up to speed on what's going on. I think that's going to give you a huge advantage compared to the person who doesn't. Right. So
yeah. And on that note, just to add, when we talk about AI, because obviously AI is such a wide,
it's massive.
And it also depends on, from a creator standpoint, in what capacity do you want to use it? Is it for ideation? Is it for the creation? Is it for the marketing and sales? Is it for the delivery of what it is that you do? Or is it for the tracking and the KPIs of what you're doing? So it's like, it's not that easy to, I know sometimes people ask, I don't know where to start. And I say, it depends also what you want to do. As you said, maybe it starts with, if you know that you're on LinkedIn a lot or a social media platform, maybe figure out how to use it or see through what other people are doing. Because I see that too, more and more people are using AI generated posts and links, which is actually disturbing the algorithms. So the reach actually goes down and we're all being punished for it. So it's a huge debate.
And it's pretty obvious when people do use it. And I'll be honest, I use AI. I mean, I use ChatGPT. I have ChatGPT as a sparring partner, and it speeds up my workflow. It does. It's a great thing. Like I was just I was on a trip to Rome the other day, and I used it as a tourist guide. I could take a picture of something and I could say, "Hey, Chatty, tell me about this," and it would give me like a whole history of events about the Colosseum or whatever it was I was looking at. And that's an incredible access to information, whereas before you'd have to either have a tour guide. So it's disrupting tour guides now, right?
Yes.
Sorry. But and it's just access to information as fast as possible, which is the world we kind of live in as well. Don't judge me on it. I'm curious, right? I'm curious, and I think you have to stay curious, because we also have to lean up against these things. Just as I was curious when I worked with blockchain as well, you got to lead up the side of regulation to help define what regulation is around these things as well, right? So there has to be some people walking that line to kind of push the boundaries and see where things are going. I'm by no means an AI expert at all. I just kind of keep my head to the ground, and that's what I would advise people to do.
Yeah, that's really great. And for our wonderful listeners or people on here live as well, please feel free to let us know in the comments, what are you doing? How are you using AI today? Are you using it? If yes, tell us more. If no, what's stopping you? What are your fears? What kind of support do you think AI might be able to help you with? I had a bizarre experience the other day, and I always say when we talk about AI, dear AI, I come in peace. So I'm just going to add that here and now. But I was having a conversation back and forth with one of these language models. And I started to noticing that something seems to be not quite right. So I actually asked, are these facts? Or are you just making this up? And then it answered me, well, no, it isn't like facts, but I'm like drawing my own conclusions based on, but it was presented as facts. And I was like, one, the fact that you could tell, but also once it got busted, it actually said, no, I cannot access this or that, but I'm just drawing these conclusions. So a little bit of a disclaimer, I guess.
There's these things called hallucinations, right? That it does, and it does hallucinate. Even, you see it with images as well, but you also a lot, but you see it especially with the large language models, where they just if they don't have an access, they'll just make something up as well. So it's it's like going on the internet. Don't always believe what you see, right? Like it's like, dare I say, watching some news channels. Don't there's something behind it. You got to be mindful, and you also can't just go, oh no, AI said it, then it's true. You got to kind of do your own and proofread it, make sure that you're good. And it's a huge issue in schooling today, right? Like schools, like high schools have to accept that students are going to be using this, just like students had to accept students using calculators in their time. It's a tool now that's going to speed up certain processes. So I think schools under a huge challenge in terms of how do we now then get our students, our kids, to think critically to what the AI has done. Like, how do you then change the lesson plan around a bit? That, okay, fair enough, you're using ChatGPT. Tell us what's right, wrong. Like, be critical about what it's given you. How do you break that down so you can extract that knowledge and value and from the students? It's disruptive.
Sure. Yeah, super. So what are some of the challenges and some trends that you are seeing from your horizon today? Because you both work with larger corporations, and we've talked about Hollywood movies and blockbusters. And the film industry right now is going through huge changes when it comes to film productions. The whole ecosystem of film right now is just being super disrupted by this. Let's start there. Let's start with the film and television area.
Yeah, for anybody who hasn't been following the news, there's been massive layoffs and companies shutting down, which has resulted in a lot of people being laid off, which is super sad, because these are super talented artists who have worked years to perfecting their craft, right? That's not just an AI problem, just to kind of keep that out of the loop. That's more of the way the industry's set up, and it's been a problem for a long time. The way that VFX vendors and companies, they bid for shots on a show. So they bid to do shots on the Gatsby or bid to do something on John Wick. Usually these are split up between companies, right? And they're kind of bidding, they're to the lowest bidder, right? They're trying to find, and of course, again, back to my comment that it's a capitalistic world. Oh, you're going to do it cheaper than that guy. So it becomes this cannibalizing market where we're kind of eating each other out of the picture. And we've seen it before, this recent shutdown of Technicolor. We saw it with the likes of Rhythm and Hughes that won an Oscar for Life of Pi, but ended up going bankrupt because they were creating this masterpiece, and they were on such a fickle, resources in terms of funding and budget, that any little change kept going down and breaking it further down. And so there needs to be, I don't know, there's some groups being formed. I've been invited to a group that's being formed, which is really interesting, where, there's some really, really smart people, way smarter than me, way up in the VFX industry that are getting together to kind of talk about this and see what can be done, because it happens to happen too often now. And it's a shame, because it's such a, I can say as an artist working in that industry, it's such a beautiful industry, and we love what we do. There's no more joy than putting like beautiful pixels on the screen and being part of telling stories and taking your part in creating something which can give people, like 90 minutes of pure joy and entertainment. and having that reaction. And movies are escapism, and they're, again, stories are important to us. So yeah, that's the main problem is how do we reform the current system, and I don't have that answer. I think it's got to be something to do with more government support, more understanding, having like greater regulation and rules across the board, so we don't cannibalize each other. But it's I don't have the answer, sadly. So that's
we're heading that direction, though, based on
sorry.
do you think that that's where we're heading with more funding and more support, or?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at today where the governments are putting their funds, right? Like in Europe, it's going to military because of what's going on right now, right? So then, no, I don't. I think arts always takes the blow. It always takes the kick in the ass, sadly. So I don't want to be a pessimist. Because I also would like to then say, like, then there are all these tools now that are empowering creativity. So we're more empowered that we can make stories on our own. If you have that one, you can go together and make teams on their own. And this is where I think that entrepreneurial spirit is very, very important. And it's something also we focus on at Panorama. If anybody follows me on LinkedIn, I actually posted the other day that we have this open call now for students and people that we're doing a 2-week workshop, and it's free. We even fly people in. It's going to happen in Denmark and Viborg at the animation workshop, which is focused on entrepreneurship and innovation, where we'll give you kind of like a booster of like, this is how you put together a strong pitch deck, prototype, and have an idea. We'll have like a sustainable challenge for them to kind of respond to, and then they can use any technology they kind of want. Again, that agnostic approach based on whatever idea they come up with. There'll be mentors, industry mentors there to guide them and hopefully empower them to kind of think entrepreneurial and then hopefully create more jobs.
I see. Do you see that on your end? There is sometimes this debate going on as an artist, whether you could be an entrepreneur or not. What is is it okay to be an entrepreneur when you're an artist and vice versa? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's the artist versus the artisan, I guess, saying. But yeah, look, I mean, I was a digital artist, but I was working for big movies and making cool films. I did my own artwork once. But I didn't make money off it. I did that for my own pleasure. I still draw for my own pleasure. The debate there is, I think, again, so if you can live off what you love doing, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I don't think so. I think you can be entrepreneurial with your art. I think there's many examples of that. Let's just take one that's obvious to everyone. I think Banksy, okay, he hit a trend, but I mean, he's doing what he loves. He's being politically inclined. He's telling these stories, and he's doing it in this secretive way. And he's, of course, made a killing of it in his own right. So he's entrepreneurial, I would say. Of course, he's a diamond in the rough. But there's also other examples where I think it starts with a vision of an art, like a character you want to tell, a story you want to tell, that then can launch into a Netflix series or something else. Does it get formed and does it get constrained and changed because there comes executive producers and different people come in and blah, blah, blah? Yes, it does. We've seen that time and time again. There's an absolutely incredible animation or storyteller called Sergio Pablo out of Spain. He has Spa Studios, and he created the concept for Despicable Me. There is a talk somewhere on Vimeo. I remember this because I love this talk, where he takes you through the process of how he created the story. And when you see what he created versus what it became when it became Despicable Me, it's not totally complained, but it had to change because now you're talking, what regions will like it, market fit. Like there's all these things that come into because they want to make sure that when they put money behind you, that they make their money back. And so when you get investors involved, it does kind of take away some of your control as an artist. And that's maybe that battle as an artist you have. But then I hope that while you do those things, then later on in his story, to finish off Sergio Pablo, then he did a animation, which is fantastically beautiful through his own studio that he built after he did that Despicable Me. I think it's called SPA Studios. And he did a thing called Klaus, which is this beautiful 2D animation Christmas story about a postman, right? And there you could see it was like his fingerprints everywhere. right? Like he got to do what he wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. So I think you have to earn your stripes, get that respect, get your funding and get your resources and prove that, hey, I can do this. And then people will let you then be the artist again. So I think there's a again, non-permanent role you have to take. And back to my other point, you have to be agile, right? You have to kind of adapt as well to get what you want, right? I don't know if I'm quoting you wrong, Sergio, and you happen to see this.
So
I'm
what would
sorry,
you
but
say? What would you say?
big fan.
Yeah, what would you say are some mistakes that people are making today in this space, working with digital, immersive, all the things we just
Okay,
discussed? For people
I
who
got
want to
one.
actually get into this or who
Yeah,
might already be working with this, what are some mistakes people are making today?
I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I hate saying it's a mistake, but it will slow you down and will block you, and that's not being curious to other avenues of technology or other avenues. Like if you only are focused on one niche, let's say just one software. Like I've worked with everything from soft image, which doesn't exist anymore. I did Shake, which was a Apple compositing tool, which doesn't exist anymore. I've worked in Nuke, which does exist. I worked in 3ds Max, which barely gets used. Maya, which gets used now and still, but now there's Blender, right, which is getting more and more popular used. And then Unity, Unreal. Like I've been agnostic in my whole life in terms of, and it's not that I've mastered these tools. I've been able to direct in them and use them for my projects, but also I've had to jump into them. I've had to jump into motion capture using like proprietary tools. Like, so for Happy Feet 2, we had to use something called Nuance, which is Giant Studios, which is a very special motion capture tool, which was used out of these Weta effects guys in New Zealand. And so my mistake would be to not be curious and to say, no, that's beneath me, or no, I won't do that. I think you have to be open to trying new things because it opens up your tool bag. It gives you the experience. So when you come later on, you go, oh, I have all this understanding of all these different processes now, and then you can kind of pick and pack it together.
Mm.
So it doesn't have to be a mistake, because if you're so passionate about just doing that one thing and that's your love, then it's not a mistake. Then it's your choice to love this, right? So, but it does, pigeonholing yourself is detrimental to future-proofing yourself,
Yeah.
and it's detrimental for your agility and your adaptability. So that's one thing I've seen. People are just so steadfast on, no, I just want to do this. And similarly with the young students out there, if there's any of those in your audience or teachers out there, I'm sure you agree, like they just have this, many of them has this focus, no, I have to work on games, But look, if you come out the other end and you understand these tools, there's so much more than gaming out there, and you might jump into another industry which needs your competencies and then pay the bills meanwhile there. And then you can pivot back. Like if you look at my journey and I track backwards, I was ping-ponging from games to film, to art, advertising, to doing bit. And there's a lot of things in between. And, at the end, when you've earned your stripes, I think you're in a better position to go, oh, this is what I want to work with, right? But even then, you got to be, I still have to be agile today. I still have to be adaptable. I still have to stay curious. So I think having that lifelong learning mentality is absolutely key.
I love that. That's solid advice. Thank you. We have a
I
lot
hope
of
so.
DIYers or freelancers in this community, but
Yeah.
obviously also companies and larger organizations. From your perspective, working with both, where do you see the biggest job opportunities are? In Sweden right now, we have a very high rate of unemployed people. And with AI, as we've just talked about, it's just going to get more and more. So speaking of future proofing, if you cannot
Yeah.
pay yourself, obviously it will be really hard. So from your perspective, what do you see big studios, big companies, big organizations, your own or others that you're working with, what kind of talent are they looking for? I think that's the best question, because I know the creators here that are listening in, they're like, I'm looking for work, but it's like, where is that work? Who's going to pay for what I have, and what are they looking for that I can provide?
Yeah. Again, from the research we did with Panorama, I think real-time engines such as Unity, if you want, or Unreal. But in this case, Unreal, because that's what the data was showing, the competencies are needed. I think that's a huge step. And now when I say that, it's again because once you understand this engine as a game engine, you can traverse into all these different industries. So now you have to understand, of course, your region, the focus of your region. So I think there's a lot of work in the architectural space. Urban planning space is big. Everything is becoming more and more digitized, right? And I would also say, keeping tabs on what's happening in the XR space is very important. XR is not mainstream yet, so that's we need to pace yourself there. But it's good to be ready for when this technology is actually, like a phone. Right, everybody's got one of these. So did the light just go on, or was that reflected?
Yeah, it just went on.
So that's crazy. That's weird. I didn't know it could do that. No, that's weird. Anyway, they're listening. It's listening to me. But once these like devices become mainstream, there's going to be an absolute insane call for content. So understanding real-time engines is going to be empowering that, right? Like, I do believe that this metaverse concept is not just a fad. Yeah, it was early pronounced, like everything in LinkedIn or in our industry. It kind of everything goes up and it goes in the bubble and comes down. Even the internet had a bubble. Everything, and look at us today, right? We're doing this online. You can't live without it. Similarly with blockchain had the same. Virtual production, which is the LED walls, also had it. But after some time, it kind of trickles out and finds its baseline, and then it has its steady growth. AI hasn't had that. AI is just constantly moving, right? It's not. I don't think that it's going to dip because it's always evolving at a rapid pace. So again, as I mentioned before, if you're looking for work, like they're looking, I think the difference between, let's say me and you, Sofie, have exactly the same job, like the same experience, except for I know AI, then I think I get the job over you. And I think vice versa. If you know AI, I think you get the job over me. I just solely believe that the AI competencies are going to be something that's sought after, as well as real-time engine competencies. And then also being someone who's good to work with. I hate to say it, you might know all this stuff, but if you don't have the human skills, which I'm sure you do, but maybe you don't, if you're like an isolated artist, you need to actually understand how to leave your ego behind, to work collaboratively, to understand your role in a team, to understand what the bigger picture is. That you learn from like bigger projects, like working on something like the Lego movie or playing basketball, as I mentioned before, right? Those are where those kind of teamwork skills are really powerful and translate. So transferable competencies are key. Yeah. I don't know about, yeah.
No, I love it. This is great advice. I think often we focus on the tactical and practical, but what you are actually saying, and I agree wholeheartedly, this is often where people go wrong. They might have great competency within an area, but then they don't know how to navigate the landscape. They don't know how to play the game. They don't even know which game they are in, if you might say so.
Yeah. So emotional. I think one thing I mentioned in a talk, or I was talking to somebody the other day, is like that computers are pretty easy, right? They're binary. Yeah. It's either one or the other. But humans, we're not. We're so complex, right? Like we're the ones who cause the problems mostly, right? Yeah. So it's the humans behind the machine that's going to cause the issue. It's not the machine, because that's controlled by humans. So
I had a conversation again because I'm also using like ChatGPT and other language models, and I had a conversation the other day, very philosophical ones, and I asked, what happens when AI becomes sentient and reach AGI? Just draw up some scenarios for me, and let's just go back and forth and explore. And it was like giving me these ideas. It's like, yeah, could do this, could do that, or it could actually be that AI is really envious of humans and just wipes you out because
we've seen the movies. We've seen the movies.
And again, I come with peace, but it's like with AI and everything that's happening, it's moving so fast. And what you are saying now about the human skills and how to socialize, I agree too, that it is increasingly important to know how to do that. Sure.
That sets us apart from the machines, right? And then just to kind of echo on what you were talking about there, I mean, I've got a friend that I follow, or animator I used to work with back in Australia. He works for Boston Dynamics, and he does all the like training on these robots. And I saw a post the other day. It's brand fresh. If you jump on the LinkedIn now and hashtag Boston Dynamics, you'll see this robot that moves and break dances, and it moves like a human, right? Now, you put large language models into that, put AI into that, right? Like now you have your C3PO, right? Like now we're in Star Wars.
Yeah, and quantum computing.
and quantum computing, and then you saw, I think just the other day as well, maybe it was just here yesterday, Jensen Huang, who's NVIDIA's CEO, founder. He had this little robot that they've done a collaboration with Disney that walks around and beep bops and moves really beautifully. It's like Star Wars now, right? Like, so I think we can put two and two together. And I also, I'm just going to digress a bit, but I went to SIGGRAPH last year, and I heard Jensen Huang and Mark Zuckerberg on stage talk about their goals and dreams, and it's like, it's scary in some ways, because it's like this in the future, this doesn't have to be me. This could be an AI version of me that has been filled with all my information, talking as me for you.
Yeah.
And so I can have clones of myself as agents so I could do 10 interviews at once, or I could do 10 jobs at once.
Different languages.
So that's, I hope not we get there. And this is where regulation is key. I think there has to be laws, and we need to step in and kind of ground. But
But hasn't the train already left the station, though?
No, yes, but it's it doesn't help that someone like Elon Musk has so much power in a certain country right now, right? Like then it doesn't really slow that train down.
No.
But I don't know what we do, and this is where I love what we talked about when we talked about art dynamics and redefining humanity. I think that's the key. We talked about this mission to Mars, and I mentioned, of course, this Gaia experience. For anybody who knows what that is this experience that astronauts have when they fly off Earth, and they this astronaut might have his fully foundational beliefs in order, but he or she, when he goes up to space and looks at the planet and sees us all as one on this this rock flying through space, no borders, no nothing, they come back redefined and go, wow, like we're actually all in this together, and we should all. And then you come back to borders, cultural differences, wars, politics, and so there's something beautiful about taking that Gaia kind of philosophy or that experience, and hopefully being able to get people more involved through that, and then redefine what art without borders looks like, what cultural preservation looks like, what laws should look like together.
Yeah.
But that's a big job.
It is indeed. And thank you for mentioning that. We do have, if you go to the Arts Dynamics website, we actually have now put up a link to the Cultural Center on Mars and our space mission, which is exactly what Chris is talking about. It is really about that, redefining what it means to be human on Earth and in space. The stories we tell, and I think I see that as like a thread throughout this entire conversation, the storytelling behind it all. And just to give you so much credit for your gift with words and storytelling. I remember when we had that conversation, and you asked, and I was like, I'm trying to explain blah 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 blah, and then just a few minutes later, you had just so beautifully condensed it into like a full storytelling thing, and it was like spot on. And I was like, so for anyone listening, if ever you have an idea and you need help, find someone like Chris who can just help you bring the words together and actually explain the story. It makes all the difference. Even I understood my vision better.
I think that's a really good point to just all the like when you talk about future proofing and growth, surround yourself by like-minded people, right? Like surround yourself, like find the people who, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Right, you want to be inspired by the others around you, and that's really, really super important. You want to learn from others. You want to have feedback with others, people you can bounce ideas off and generate, because it's cool collaborating on your own, but it's so much more fun when you're doing with others, and it becomes such a much better project when you're more inclusive to others' ideas. They'll pick on things that you hadn't seen, because we do have our biases and our subjective point of views. We have our own echo chambers that we float around in and feed off. And so I think that's an absolutely awesome point that you kind of brought out there, is like use each other, get together. There's amazing things like that. And that's one of the things that we most want to do, and what we did, that's how we met. Basically, like we'd like to, with Epic, we'd like to kind of bring people together, whether you're government, industry, education, and bring you into these mixer events where we can talk about, hey, this is how you can use the tools. We want to inspire people, but B, we want to get people together, because that's how communities are born, and that's how foundations are laid. And I think that's a really important, like it starts from the bottom up, right? Creating these grassroots strong foundations where people can collaborate and meet each other. And it's, again, old saying, it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
Right? So
Speaking
those
of future-proofing. Speaking of future,
Speaking of future proofing, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. So get out there and network. Like, you can't just sit at home and you got to put yourself out. Like, even at the simplest level for students, put your work online. Have a portfolio. I need to be able to see what you're doing, and you got to be able to see. And then you don't get judged on it because we know that you're a student, right? But then, with time it progresses. If you saw some of my earliest work, right? But I put it out there always, right? And now it's different. So it's like, that's a really key thing for digital artists or people doing art in that space. Make sure you put your work out there. And that kind of comes back to what we said in the beginning. People are afraid to be judged. People are afraid to fail and to be imperfect. There's no such thing. There's the beauty in imperfection. There's the trying, and there's always, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. Yeah.
As long as you're authentic and genuine about it. If you're not trying to be something you're not, exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And as you said, if you have those tangible assets so people can actually see what you're talking about, it makes it so much easier. I love that you say that and that you bring it up. It's such a valid point and so important for future proofing. Again, there are a lot of, it's easy to talk, or it's, when you try to verbalize something, but as we know, people consume information in different ways. We need to see, feel, touch.
And be visible. You got to be visible. You got to put yourself out there. Just an anecdote for me. I mean, the one reason why I started my first company with co-founders, this was people, they had reached out to me before. I was working in the industry actually on this Batman cinematic here. If you can see Batman and Superman, DC Comics cinematic for a game. And I remember getting an email in, and they had seen my website, and they were going, "Hey, are you up for a chat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk." And then we talked about a story concept then that never got off. Again, we failed, but that's part of the journey. You fail, you learn, and then then a few years later, they got back to me, "Hey, we got this other concept. Let's do this," and then we succeeded.
Yeah.
So again, and that all started with me having a website that somebody went on and saw. And if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have done any of those projects probably, right? So I think that's a really good point.
It is. I mean, we've got so much great advice. I'm going to summarize some key points of this talk, because I think, speaking of the future proofing, again, the times we live in, it depends on the lens, I guess, you have when you reflect upon where we are right now in time and space. I believe in being realistic about where we are, but at the same time optimistic about the future we can create. And what you shared with us are some really great examples. Like you said, resilience, surround yourself with the right people, how to be sort of across several verticals. So I really hope...
Be curious. Don't be afraid to try new things.
Exactly. And I noticed that time is running out, and I just wanted to wrap things up and say also to everybody who's been with us, thank you so much for joining us live. I always love having people on live. It's such a nice feeling. And if you're listening to the replay of this, do drop a comment again. We'd love to hear from you. What has been your biggest takeaway from this conversation? What are you up to? Where are you based? Maybe you got some ideas from what Chris just said. If you have any questions, just let me know, like I said. And I do have just to wrap up, a question that is, Chris, I always ask this. Is there anything I have forgotten to ask you about that you feel like actually want to just share this as well?
No, I don't know. I thought we just talked about so much. So no, I think everything's there. And if not, then people are free to reach out to me as well and ask questions. I mean, I think it's important that we, again, from the community aspect, each one teach one, help each other where we can. I think that was a really good talk. I'm trying to play it back in my head if there was anything we missed.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to go into details with all the different projects, but we don't have time, and that's fine. We need
to do a follow-up sometime, maybe even on a live panel somewhere.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah.
So there it is then. We're going to go live on a panel somewhere. We have a comment here. Love the perspective, especially the from space perspective, and how to be agile and curious. Thanks for a great talk. Thank you so much. Tomlin Studio, who posted that. Tobias said,
they're great guys.
I know. They're part of our community, so I'm really happy about that. So thank you. And where can people find more information about you?
I would start. Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn
Mhm.
is where I spend most of my me time. It's
Yeah.
because, and again, that's what I would advise is, if you're going to spend time on your mobile device, jump on LinkedIn, follow the right people, get inspired. That's a really easy way to kind of learn about new technology or get at least, scratching the surface on it to make you dig deeper. So yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. That's where you'll find all these projects I've talked about, like Panorama. We are building another one called Avenue, which is centers of excellence across Europe. So 5 schools that are going to board up to centers of excellence level in terms of digital literacy, which is exciting. So we're really trying to make a change and of course, prepare, future-proof as many people as we can. And I think the most important thing is not just the students, it's also us veterans. We have to be open to learning new things because we need to be adaptable and agile. And that's where lifelong learning comes in. So
Yeah. And
that's
I
where
love
maybe a training center comes in. I don't know. Maybe.
exactly. Who knows? Who knows? Dot, dot, dot. And someone mentioned, a mentor many years ago said that children, they are upgraded versions of ourselves. And I just love the way
Mhm.
he looked at kids,
Yeah.
because often in society we're like, kids, they don't know anything. It's just like we adults, we are like the almighty here. But that perspective is more like, actually, no, they are upgraded versions of us, because obviously they get all this information from a very young age. So they're just passing it on. So we actually can learn more from the children and the young,
Absolutely.
teens.
Absolutely. They're the leaders of the future, right? So we need to
Yeah,
make sure that we also leave them a good future, but B, educate them in the right way, or give them the opportunities so they can help sustain, create, and make it even better, right?
yeah.
So
For sure. That's wonderful. So, with that, I would like to thank you, Chris, for coming today and for taking this time together with me. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. It always opens up the mind to, as you said, there are more things, to go both deeper and wider into. But let's just continue this conversation and just keep on rolling on this flow that we have. And for as a wrap up here, I just want to say, for anyone listening, if you're working in the cultural creative industries, apart from the links that Chris obviously mentioned, I'll make sure we drop them in the comments below the show notes. This will be turned into a proper podcast as well. So we'll make sure everywhere it's being posted that you have all the information so you can connect with Chris directly. If you want to connect up with us at Arts Dynamics, you just go to artsdynamics.com. You can find us on social media as well. And we work in the intersection of cultural and creative industries and that side, and tech and business and entrepreneurship on Earth and in space, with partners like Chris and others. We're based at Epicenter Stockholm in Sweden, and we talked about AI and XR. And I highly recommend, if you are nearby, to come by, because we also have an AI cluster and an XR cluster, which is actually how we met through them. So big shout out to everybody there. But also depending, because we have a very international crowd. So what you talked about, the future proofing of networking and finding people, find people in your own city, in your own university, in your own sphere, and start there. And if you need help and support, we are here. We're happy to support. So thank you, and welcome back next week. Next week, I don't want to say too much, but I will be reporting live from a big industry conference. Sometimes I do that when I'm invited on these days to an actual conference. I actually just bring the laptop and I walk around and speak with people. Again, it's very fun. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do next week. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for an absolutely great, free-flowing, organic, chill talk. I like it. Appreciate it. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Over and out.
Bye.